Are HR leaders best placed to drive digital transformation in 2022? And will we see a 4-day working week normalised in Southeast Asia? We'll answer those questions and more as we shine a spotlight on all things HR. This is the HR Agenda. I'm Paul Howell. Joining me here this week is digital transformation expert Laurence Smith. Laurence, welcome back for another episode.
Hello, Paul. Fantastic to be here again. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a few weeks since we've had you on. What's been top of your agenda this month?
So interestingly, it's all about digital transformation. I'm actually just starting to write a new book called The Digital Mindset Playbook, which will be out later this year. And that's driven by conversations I've been having with some big banks and insurance companies who have been following the digital transformation path. You know, they've done a series of leadership experiences and workshops, but they're now stuck with, how do we cascade this out to the next 20,000 or 30,000 employees? And, nobody's written a book on this. So I'm starting to write the book on this as well as working with these clients at the same time. So very exciting to be doing my second book. A little bit daunted, but looking forward to it.
Well, the first topic on our agenda today is right up your alley, Laurence, digital transformation. It's been the catch cry across the business world for several years, but there are some quite established organisations still late to the party. More and more we're seeing that it's not just customers driving that need to go digital. In fact, it's now the workforce that is placing all that pressure on their organisations. They simply don't want to work with dated processes, pushing paper, and manually completing tasks that could easily be automated otherwise. Laurence, would you agree with my reading there that it's the workers who are driving digital transformation now? And what does that mean for HR leaders in those organisations?
I would completely agree with you, Paul. And in fact, I'd link it back to some of our conversations a couple of weeks ago about the Great Resignation, because I think the reality is, if a significant part of your job is composed of boring and repetitive tasks, which could easily be automated. And in some cases, you've tried to automate and you've been told off, or you've seen your colleagues automate things and lose their jobs because they're no longer required. I think a lot of people are very frustrated by that work environment, and I think that's driven a lot of the resignation we're seeing. So very clearly, if you're in an organization that's going to be driving digital transformation from a customer perspective and giving a better customer experience, equally, it is not sustainable. You have to focus on, making the employee experience that's just as good. You have to be applying smart technology. You have to be taking the pain out of the workplace, so the people are, working more value-added activities. They're having more time with customers. They're having, a higher degree of work that is creative and actually makes a difference. Else you will lose those people, and rightfully so. So you need to accelerate that digital transformation, both from a customer perspective, but from an employee perspective, equally importantly. You're absolutely right there.
Well, let me get a little bit philosophical now. Is digital transformation a finite process still, with a beginning, a middle, and an end? Or is it now a continuous journey, almost like a whole new state of mind that's required?
I think both. If you look back at total quality movement, Six Sigma, knowledge management, right? Those things were incredibly important and a massive focus, business process reengineering, for a number of years, then essentially disappeared. People stopped talking about it because it became embedded. And I do think there's very much a generational aspect to it here. There's a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, or 60s that may have worked for these organizations for many, many years, for whom digital has been less comfortable. And where transformation programs have been done well, they've appealed to those people. They've offered reskilling opportunities. They've made it fun and interesting for people, irrespective of age, to get involved and to play with something digital and have fun. I do think a lot of the heavy lifting in the fast movers around digital transformation has been done. Right, a lot of legacy systems have been retired. Things have moved from outsourced to the cloud, from legacy systems to open source systems. And I think increasingly people are becoming more comfortable with the digital world. And partly that is it's in our own lives. Facebook has rebranded to Meta. It's given everybody permission to talk about the metaverse and to think about the implications that has on our lives, our business, our work, and society. Digital transformation, I don't think is going away, probably for another 5 years, because there's so many laggards out there for whom it is still a big challenge. But I do think as we become more familiar and confident in this, I've always used the term digital world and talked about it in terms of learning a new language. And, to what extent are you familiar enough with the language of the digital world to survive, to make friends, to get a job, to become fluent? And I think increasingly we're seeing organizations and individuals become more competent and comfortable in this new language of the digital world. And as more people become more fluent, we'll have less classes and less instructions and less teachers teaching this digital transformation stuff, because it will just be that's how work gets done. And again, I think the most successful digital transformations have been where it hasn't been about a lot of extra work. It's been about making how you get your job done better, quicker, easier through the smart synthesis of machine and human, of digital and people. And I think that's, that will continue for a few years. And there's good lessons for us to learn from those that are doing it best.
For those HR leaders that are late to start on this journey, what are the first steps that you'd recommend now?
I mean, there's both the personal and the professional. So they need to be reinventing themselves, whether it's something as simple as, watching more YouTube videos, subscribing to some magazines, reading books, go buy some crypto, experiment with some NFTs, as we talked about earlier. Start to play with this digital stuff, play computer games with your kids, try out augmented reality for the first time or whatever. And at the same time, put in place programs for your team. One of the biggest, and I've been, harking on about this for 4, 5, 6, 7 years now. One of the biggest mistakes I see in large organizations going through digital transformation is either they think it's all about technology, whereas it's largely about people and mindset and culture. You have to change the technology, but, and that's very non-trivial, but changing people's mindset and behaviors is even harder, and the culture. But they forget about HR. HR should be the biggest enabler, the biggest, change ambassadors, change champions, supporters. How can you be a credible HR business partner if you do not understand the digital world as well as the business people you are supporting and the new digital business models or prototypes, experiments that they're building? So I think there's a real onus on HR to step forward and to be the most digi-savvy people in the room. I mean, why not? If digital transformation is all about people, mindset, and culture, HR needs to be the most, personally confident and also competent people in the room to be the most effective, digital business partners, if you want to, use that term. So, HR leaders that are behind the curve, develop yourself, play with digital, put a program in place for your people. If you don't know how, read Chief of Staff Asia or call me.
Thanks, Laurence. And moving on to our next topic, and lately we've seen a growing popularity for the 4-day working week, with a number of European governments testing this out among their public service workforces. Early reports suggest it's a winner among staff, perhaps no surprise there, with workers reporting feeling less stressed and improved health and work-life balance. It's not yet clear if there has been a productivity or a budgetary impact, and the employers involved are likely to keep those results under wraps. But Laurence, this looks like a slow evolution toward more flexible working across the board. Is that a positive thing for employer and employee relations?
Oh my gosh, I certainly hope so. For the 30 plus years I've been studying the sort of the future of work, right? We've always been talking about automating the boring stuff, making work more meaningful, and giving people more life back to actually live. If this is finally happening, I think it's magnificent. I'm certainly dubious in how smooth any transition like this will be, because I think our organizations and leaders would have a lot to learn to make this work effectively. Having said that, in the last 24 months, we've transformed the world of work due to COVID. So maybe this is just the next stage of that. Because look, it's very clear that work typically expands to fill the hours available. And if you have a much tighter time frame, then generally, people step forward and manage much more tightly to that, and can be far more productive. I think it does really, really push to something you talked about earlier, which is, are we actually effectively transforming our organizations so that a lot of the administration, the bureaucracy, the duplication, the paper pushing has truly been, automated out, has been taken out, has been thrown away, has been discarded? Because I would guess that most of us probably spend 20% of our working week on non-value added work that could potentially be easily automated. And if that is so, then the 4-hour work week could perhaps be a blessing in disguise and give us all time to find a way to give back, to spend more time with family, or to work on, personal projects, side hustles, businesses, and create our own gig economy opportunities as well. So, some really interesting implications there. But I think we'll have to wait to see how it works out.
We know that more hours doesn't necessarily mean more work being done, but there must be at least some cost to reducing an employee's time at work by 20% every week. Are those extra costs likely to hold back employers in Asia from following this trend?
Now that's an interesting question. And again, this might be tougher in Northeast Asia than Southeast Asia. If you look at, Korea and Japan, there's traditionally, especially if you work with the larger conglomerates, a tradition of overwork. In fact, in Japan, there's a term for death from overwork, and it's, a sad reality. But even there are organizations experimenting with 4-hour work week. So I do think this will happen. I don't think there's necessarily massive costs for the employer if, they have been removing the nonsense work, the low value added work from the equation, and giving people more opportunity to focus on what adds value for the customer or their internal stakeholders. So I think this is still an open question for us to, perhaps, come back and reflect upon in 6 months.
And finally, is it absolutely certain that workers want more time to switch off like this? Is there a risk that a 3-day weekend, every weekend, will actually create a work-life imbalance in the other direction?
That is possible. And I do remember when I worked in Korea, and told some of my staff to go home at 6 or 7 p.m. at night and not work late in the office. They actually used staying late in the office to avoid family obligations. So certainly for them, this would not be a popular idea. It may well be a generational thing, right? It may be another 5 or 10 years until this becomes comfortable and familiar. It may be the people coming through university and high school now are going to think it's totally normal to actually be able to spend a decent part of the week on things that matter to them, as well as having meaningful work for the other 4 days a week. I suspect, a bit like digital transformation, it may be those of us in our 40s and 50s who'll be a bit lost if we don't have to go into the office or, even work from home for, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I think, you might want to describe this as the great recalibration. And, can people actually readjust to something like this? I don't know. I think it's a really interesting, very provocative question you're putting out there, Paul. And I'd love to see some feedback from the viewers on what they think about this and perhaps continuing this conversation.
Thanks, Laurence. Up next, we're talking HR tech with the Chief of Staff Asia's Technology Editor, Vandana Nanwani. Hi, Vandana. Welcome back. What do you have for us in today's HR tech update?
Hi, Paul. In today's episode, I will be discussing how technology is used in developing compensation and benefits packages for employees today. As we know, with the COVID-19 pandemic, health-related benefits have become an even greater priority. And just like how workers quickly adapted to technology for remote working during the heights of the pandemic, similarly, technology has taken a front seat in all aspects of HR, including managing and creating compensation and benefit packages in the new era.
So what are some of the ways that HR has been utilising technology within their comp and ben work?
Firms are using 3 main types of HR technology solutions. The first is web and mobile applications. So apps on mobile devices enable employers to offer a more personalized experience to their staff. helping them to reach and engage everyone on the payroll, however remote. They also allow employees to access information or change their benefit options on demand, and this is something younger generations are frequently expecting by default. There are many health and wellness, mobile-enabled counseling and discounts apps that allows firms to monitor and manage them from anywhere in the world. Now, analytics is another HR technology that HR teams are utilizing. While it is commonly used to manage and assess the workforce as a whole, the components that look at pay equity and financial impact can help HR to make informed decisions on budgeting and which employee to reward or provide more assistance to. Now, the most common type of HR tech used for compensation and benefits work is the Human Resources Management System, or HRIS. So firms who have used HRIS modules for compensation development have reported that it was able to help them plan, set up, and manage compensation cycles all in one system. Now, some even created access to employees with a self-service option, allowing for employees to have greater visibility over their own salary components.
Can you share some examples of these modules and solutions that are available here in Southeast Asia?
Of course. BIPO service is one example of an integrated one-stop mobile-based HRIS platform that helps businesses streamline their processes. Now, the software and company were developed in Singapore and uses technologies such as GPS, biometrics, and iris scanners to support their time management systems. Now, this allows employees who are constantly on the move to stay agile and connected. Now, Just Login is another Southeast Asian HRIS that has an employee-centric focus. So each employee gets a personalized mobile dashboard to manage all their pay, leave, and attendance matters, giving them access no matter where they are. Now, managers can also manage their team calendars and approval tasks through these mobile applications.
Okay, thanks Vandana. We'll see you on the next episode with more HR technology updates.
Thanks, Paul.
Well, that's just about all we have time for on the HR agenda today. Thanks very much once again, Laurence Smith, for being with me today.
Thank you, Paul. I've really enjoyed it. I would just close with a final comment for any HR leaders that are lost or struggling on the digital transformation journey or not sure what to do next. Just, please reach out on LinkedIn. This is what I've been focused on for the last 8 or 9 years. Happy to help and give some free advice or some free coaching on that. So thanks again, Paul, for some really interesting, provocative questions. I've enjoyed the conversation. It's been a lot of fun.
And thanks to the HR community across Southeast Asia. Now, nominations for the HR Stars Awards are closing soon in Singapore. We've had a huge number and variety of entries, but there's still time to be part of the action. So check out the links below or head to chiefofstaff.asia for more information. Also coming up soon is our new report into executive education and some of the post-COVID trends expected for MBAs and business schools. As always, all the links and details from everything we've spoken about today will be in the article or description box of this video, and I urge you all to subscribe to keep all of our channels alive. I'm Paul Howell, and thanks for watching the HR Agenda.